Aladdin's father traveled the world while his son grew up on the streets of Agrabah, poor, struggling, and alone. But there was a reason behind his departure and a force that drove him to stay away, and it is these justifications for his absence that I'm after today. Today, we're going to fully explore the journey of Aladdin's father and who he was. Hello, I'm Isaac from Watch Slow Videos, where we discuss fun topics for fun people. On my channel, I focus on spreading magic by examining Disney films, so if you are new here, consider subscribing. The origin of Aladdin's father, named Kazim, can be traced back to a time just prior to his marriage with the love of his life, Zena, in the city of Agrabah. This point was discovered by Aladdin and his friends when a coin from an empty well entices Aladdin to pursue knowledge of his family, and the genie allows him to travel to the past since the coin came from a wishing well. The genie allows Aladdin to be transported to the past, where he meets a young version of his mother, saves her life, and befriends her. Not realizing the identity of his mother though, Aladdin disappointedly returns to his own time just before Kazim, who is currently being called Hamid, excitedly ventures to Zena to let her know of his great news. Kazim had secured a job of selling lamps in the markets of Agrabah, which meant they would finally have enough money to get married. The two were ecstatic to finally be able to be together, but Zena would have one request. She desired to name their firstborn son Aladdin. When the time came to have their first son, they went with the name Zena had chosen, and the small family were happy they had one another. But Kazim was frustrated with their lives. Even with the lamp sales position, Zena and Kazim would not have much between the two of them. They had practically nothing, were shamed, and were called street rats, but Kazim felt they deserved a life that was grander than the one they had. Determined to create a life that his family was destined to live, Kazim set off out of Agrabah after bestowing a dagger to his wife to give to Aladdin when he was old enough to cherish it. Aladdin was only a newborn when his father set off to build a grander life for him, so throughout all of his childhood, he never knew his father. For Kazim became obsessed with his adventures, especially when he consistently had nothing to show for his efforts.
I knew exactly what I wanted for my family. But the weeks turned into months and the months turned into years.
Kazim was spending year after year in search of something to bring his family prosperity, although that day would never come to fruition while his entire family was still alive. At one point, Kazim did return to Agrabah in search of those he loved and had left behind, but he could not find his wife or his son. In that moment, he felt he would have given up everything to see Zena again, and desperately hoped to find his family. But after no success, he came to the conclusion his family was gone. The truth was, though, that his son Aladdin was still alive and held onto the dagger he had been given, only now he was alone. His mother had perished some time before Kazim returned to Agrabah, forcing Aladdin to learn to steal and fend for himself as a child in the streets. Even though Aladdin desperately desired a father, Aladdin never connected with Kazim throughout his early life, so he came to a similar conclusion that his mother had. His father was never coming back.
He died a long time ago. I never knew him.
While Aladdin thought Kazim had died though, Kazim had truly abandoned the idea his family lived within Agrabah any longer, and now simply adventured for the fun of it, for the drive for more, for the treasure that felt just within his grasp. Kazim left the city looking for all of the treasures and all of the riches in all of the world, and he believed he could make those hopes become reality when he stumbled upon an organization known as the 40 Thieves. The group of misfits, bandits, and scoundrels worked together to be the most feared group of thieves in all of the land, and through the sacrifices, intelligence, and strength of Kazim, through the challenge, he earned his place amongst the 40 Thieves by defeating a member who had already been integrated into their ranks. Kazim became dedicated to the group and learned to love the men like family, which is why he stayed committed to them throughout all of their ruthlessness and dangerous actions. They were a strong team who were after the greatest treasure of them all, a magical object capable of turning anything into gold, called the Hand of Midas. With his passion for the Hand of Midas and the 40 Thieves in place, he rose to become the leader of his people, earning their respect and admiration. As their leader, Kazim was able to lay restrictions on the 40 Thieves as he pursued the miraculous gold-creating treasure. Kazim added to the code of the 40 Thieves that they shall never harm the innocent. With his control of the 40 Thieves solidified, and the proof of the Hand of Midas mounting, Kazim desperately desired the wealth that seemed to be so close to him as the now dominant and powerful king. At the same time though, his son felt and behaved identically to him. When Aladdin was fully grown, he was infamous throughout Agrabah by guards and civilians alike for his thievery and evasion skills. But he always remained focused on helping those less fortunate than himself, while dreaming of a better life. Aladdin had ambitions and aspirations that were very similar to his father, for he too hoped to reach a place that was better than his current reality. And through his journey, and by making mistakes, he eventually found that new life with Princess Jasmine. Aladdin and Jasmine fell in love, became one another's greatest treasures, and eventually even planned to be married. But in the back of Aladdin's mind, he was insecure about his ability to create a family. Without a father, he was concerned that he would be unable to build a great life for those he loved. Eventually though, Aladdin would meet Kazim again. In search of the Oracle who would be capable of guiding the 40 Thieves to the hand of Midas, Kazim leads a raid on Agrabah during Aladdin's wedding and inadvertently battles his own son. After realizing the power of the relic Kazim sought out and festering with his desire to know who he was, Aladdin feels compelled to learn about his past.
My mother died when I was just a kid, and I never even knew my father.
But when he discovers his father is actually still alive, he feels torn. Another part of Aladdin questions whether he actually wants to understand the truth behind his father. He didn't know if he was ready to meet the man who had left him.
I always wanted to know about my father, but just now I'm not so sure. What kind of man leaves his son? Maybe I don't want to know.
With the support of Jasmine, Aladdin is guided by the Oracle to find his father, tracking down the 40 Thieves. Aladdin makes his way to his father and reveals himself to Kazim, and while Kazim is ecstatic to see his boy again, the demands of his followers forces him to bring punishment upon his son. Aladdin takes part in the challenge his father had once taken a part in himself, facing the second in command of the 40 Thieves, Salak. With Aladdin's victory comes not only the freedom to live after trespassing into their hideout, but also induction to become one of the individuals in Kazim's new family, the 40 Thieves. As a now welcomed and honored individual within Kazim's fortress, he finally is able to connect with and share his past with his son. Kazim reveals the pain he has felt from being away from his family, why he left, and where he hopes to venture to next. And it is because of these honest moments Aladdin realizes his father must come to his wedding. While Aladdin didn't desire the riches and lavish livings his father hoped to bring him, Aladdin knew now that Kazim could finally act to be the father he had longed for growing up. Kazim does return to Agrabah, but is tempted by greed when he enters the palace, pursuing the Oracle. After years of being tied to the 40 Thieves, he was trapped within the dishonest and selfish lifestyle, until his son acts to protect his family over the well-being of himself. Aladdin frees his father after he was imprisoned so that Kazim can distance himself from Aladdin's life, even though he was aware that every hope and dream could be lost because of that decision. The truth behind Aladdin's treachery is discovered, but while Kazim assures him he must never go back, Aladdin returns to Agrabah to be with Jasmine, understanding now that he could never leave those he loved for his own mistakes. Aladdin must take action upon those beliefs even further, when his father is held against his will by the enemies that had risen from the 40 Thieves. Those who had betrayed Kazim forced him to assist them on their journey to the hand of Midas, but luckily Aladdin ventures to rescue his father. After freeing him, the father and son work together to finally retrieve the relic his father had been pursuing for most of Aladdin's life instead of being with him. But everything was not as grand as Kazim had hoped for. With the realization through his time with Aladdin that his own pursuits of the Hand of Midas were feeble, meaningless, and destructive, Kazim comes to understand again the importance of loving his son, and apologizes for how long it took him to see the faults in the life he was living.
This wretched thing almost cost me the ultimate treasure. It's you, son. You are my ultimate treasure.
Kazim's frustration with the mystical object for tormenting his mind for so many years brings him to cast the Hand of Midas into the oceans in hopes of hiding the curse from the world. And with that decision in place, they return to Agrabah. A bond had been rebuilt between Kazim and Aladdin, but due to the treacherous and greedy decisions by Kazim, he could not return for long with his son. While his son was becoming a powerful man, Kazim could not exist where he had stolen and hurt so many. Kazim spends his final night after connecting with his son watching Aladdin's marriage to Jasmine, for even a wanted man will risk a bit to see his own son's wedding. Not knowing where he was going, he then voyages out on horseback into the desert to find new adventures. Aladdin's father was a man who set out to create a life for himself that was larger than he could possibly imagine, not only for himself, but for his family, even though the goal would become lost, with ego and greed driving him farther apart from those he left behind until he could no longer even find his family. Kazim drove himself deeper into a criminal, lucrative, and dangerous world that he learned to connect with and love. The only entity that could drive him out of his obsession and behaviors was the actions by his son. Aladdin helped his father give up the life of being the King of Thieves. But now it's time to hear your thoughts. Can you understand why Kazim was drawn away from Aladdin, or was his choice unjustified? I find that I can empathize with his decision to become the King of Thieves, but it also seemed like he probably loved that criminal lifestyle and pursuing wealth more than he ever let on. Let me know what you think in the comments, along with any other ideas you have for future videos. To see more Aladdin videos like this one, you can find a link to those videos in the description. And if you'd like to continue to see more magical discussions like this one, then don't forget to click that subscribe button and the beautiful bell if you're new. Thank you to my wonderful patrons over on Patreon who are amazing supporters of my videos. And as always, thanks for watching and have a magical day.